I went to Locus again playing Traptrix to try out some new cards I got, which I wanted to test in Traptrix, and I want to show you the deck. First, for the Traptrix monster, I played 3 Mamelio, 3 Mantis, 3 Pudica, 2 Dionea, 1 Arachno and 1 Vesticudo. I think I quite like the lineup. The only problem I currently have is I draw a bit too much of the normal summons, which are like the 3 Mamelios, 3 Mantis and 2 Dionea. To be honest, Pudica also kind of goes into this category, but because she searches you the field spell, which lets you normal summon again, Pudica with another normal summon actually can be quite nice. Also, I'm currently thinking if I want to change the Vesticudo back to a second Arachnocampa. Because the reason to play Vesticudo is if you want to have a Traptrix monster to special summon, especially off of the Manta Search, and still be able to go into cards like the non-plant or insect cards, like Zeus, but this didn't come up too much in recent times, so I'm thinking going back to another Arachnocampa, but I have to see. Here, I draw a bit too much of them, but I'm not sure at the moment what to cut, because the 2 Dionea in theory are really nice, because one you use for the standard combo, and one you will can then use on the follow-up turn to normal summon and then special summon a Traptrix monster back from the grave. And cutting one of these, I'm not sure, because realistically you always want to draw at least one of these, because those are your best combo starters. So in an ideal world you want to draw one of them, and that's why I don't want to cut them at the moment. So that's the Traptrix monsters. Then the honorable mention for Traptrix monsters, 3 Parallel Exceed, which with 1 Arachno and 1 Vesticudo are 5 ways you can play if your hand trap gets normal summoned, which is if your normal summon gets hand trapped, which is really important, because an Imperm, for example, on the normal summon can sometimes stop the whole turn, and it's really nice just to have the Parallel Exceed to play through it, or one of these. That's another reason I'm thinking of just playing 2 Arachnocampas, because Arachnocampa fulfills this role much better. I think this is a good ratio, because 5 cards is always a good thing if you want to draw one of them, but not 2 especially. I mean, drawing 2 of those would be fine, but you want usually 1 in the hand, because then you have more hand space for hand traps and normal traps, which is good. Then the 1 field spell, which is necessary for Pudica. 3 Prosperities, just to increase your consistency, and because all of your combos are 2-card combos, just get into them more regularly. Then for the Trapos, I play 3 Holotea, which is very important to get the combo, and hard drawing it can be very nice, because it allows you again to play through hand traps if you draw it in another trap. 2 Gravediggers. The reason you play 2 is because if you draw one of them, your Rafflesia on the first turn is still alive if you get Nibiru. 1 Floodgate, 1 Nightmare, and 1 Terrifying. I like to play quite trap hole heavy builds, and I thought I want to use these 3, and another one I tested this week, which is Banishing Trap Hole. This on summon banishes 1500 or less attack monster face down. It's a bit like the Bottomless Trap Hole, but to be honest I think it's a bit better. You can't hit the boss monsters with it, because it only goes through 500, 1500 or less attack. But most of the times you can't even hit the boss monsters with your bottomless trapos, because it destroys, then banishes, and many boss monsters can just negate it, or playing through the combos your opponent might have found a way to negate it. And this goes after the starter of the enemy deck. And if, for example, enemies play something like Raid Raptors or many similar decks where they need one body on the field to keep playing, banishing that one body, especially face down so they can't do anything else with it, is really nice. I think I will keep playing this. Again, theoretically, against the Fire King matchup, you can also banish their IP Masquerader with face down, which is really nice. Most of them also don't play 2, so they can go for that line then again. And yeah, I really liked how that card performed, but I will have to test a bit more with it. Then, for my hand traps, I played 11 hand traps. Again, I'm currently debating if I should take out one of my normal summons and improve my hand trap count to 12. But I played 3 impermanents, which is very nice because you can also pitch this in this deck with Fodutea. 3 Ash, which I would side out if I played against the fire deck, but it didn't really come up. I sided it out one time against Sediment Grade, but it's just especially for locals. For bigger tournaments, I'm not so sure if I would play this in the main deck, if I would expect more Fire King, but at locals, where you play against a lot of different decks, it's very good to have hand traps like Ash or Imperm, which can hit a multitude of different targets. Then, for the last 5, 3 Nip, 2 Droll, just to end their turn and don't even let end their turn and don't even let them have a board at the end. That's like the main thing. You can also play 2 Nip, 3 Droll, depending on what you prefer. I just like the Nibiru a bit more because I feel like many decks at the moment can play Fruit Droll and Dogbird. And Nibiru is just really nice if you have a clean field for your turn, because then you can build up your Traptrix board and don't have to worry to also break your opponent's board, which this deck is not so good. That's also the reason why I go so hand trap heavy and not play board breakers, because your engine is not that great at breaking boards, and it's much better just prevent your opponent from building a board. Then, for the extra deck. For my Traptrix, I play 3 Serra, which I think still 3 is the correct ratio, just because you can make it 2 to 3 times. Maybe you banish one off of Pot of Prosperity if you go for Prosperity for 6, but it's really nice. You make it multiple times. I even did it 2 times in a turn this tournament, because the first one got outed by an opponent, and then I got one back later with an used Alumeris. So that's really nice. I wouldn't change that. 1 Oedipus to kill your opponent. 2 Rafflesia, which I'm not so sure if I want to keep playing 2. I'm thinking of maybe only playing 1, because in my thought process when deciding to play 2 was I play a lot of Trap House, so maybe sometimes even on turn 3, if I can't kill my opponent, I want to make a second Rafflesia. But this mostly does not come up. Why? Because either you have so many Traptrix monsters turn 3 on the field with Oedipus that you kill your opponent, or you don't have the material to make another Rafflesia. So I'm maybe change this for something else. I already have something in mind, but I need to wait till the cards arrive, and then I will test it again. And then 1 Pingu and 1 Alumeris, which are both really nice. Their secondary effects to equip our enemy card and summon an enemy card didn't come up to this time, because the games were quite short, and the one longer game I had didn't have that much opportunities to use this effect, because I played against a stun player and I didn't even get into my extra deck. Then for the non-Traptrix cards, 1 Time Thief, 1 Zeus. which are very nice, especially the time thief, because you have a reliable way to make it with a trap as a material with Hodotea. And Zeus is just really helps you break boards, which this deck is just not good at, and Zeus is a true godsend for this deck. One Baguska just to stall out turns if your enemy set up and you can't break it. One Cowboy for time, one Dreader against graveyard decks, and because this deck has a really shitty time getting over towers, your only in-engine way to deal with towers is like Pingu plus Oedipus on field, which takes up so many resources and is still very vulnerable. I also decided to play a Underworld Goddess. It hasn't come up yet, but I think it's a good choice to play, especially, as I said, for something like locals where you don't know what you're going to get up against. This week there were 4 Marincers players, and I'm pretty sure if I would have played against one, I would have made this card, because then you can just link off their link 2 monster, their link 4 tower monster, I think, with 3 of your other cards to make Underworld Goddess. So that's the reason I'm playing that. And the last card, another thing I wanted to test out, is Baromet, the Sacred Tree Shrub. This little sheep, first of all, is a plant, which means you can still summon it after you played Arachnokampa. And it has 2 effects. You can detach a material from this card, target 1 normal trap in your graveyard, then you can place it on the bottom of the deck and draw 1 card. This is very nice in theory in the grind game, or if you just have enough summons to make another thing turn 1, but you're locked under Arachno and want to make something, which and you don't have anything other you want to make, because drawing a card in this deck is not that bad, because with your hand traps and traps you have like 20 cards. If you draw them, you can just set them or use them next turn against your opponent, so it's a 50% chance of giving you an interruption. And if you draw one of your normal summons, its second effect can come into play, because if a normal trap is activated, you can detach a Xyz material from any of your monsters, and then you can special summon one level 4 monster from your hand, which for example could be a special summon of a Pudika if you have in hand, and then banish an opponent's monster. I will be honest, I didn't make this card. I most often just banished it with Prosperity, but I want to keep testing it because first of all, I think it looks quite nice, and I like the possibility in grind game to draw cards and to recycle your traps from the graveyard, and I want to keep testing with it because I think it has at least potential, and I also don't feel that there's not too much extra deck space. I think you have quite a lot of space to experiment around with and play what you like. Again, as I said, I could also cut another Rafflesia if I really want to play something else. Then for the side deck, which is mostly hand traps and going first cards, the last roll, then 2 Ghost Spell, 3 Vader, 3 Shifter. Shifter is very nice against combo decks, and again I took 3 Vader and 2 Bell because I thought, okay, Vader is like good against almost everything, or usable against almost everything. Then I just decided to play the 2 Bell because I thought it is the next best hand trap to play, and that's why it's here. And then for going first, 3 Judgment, which I always set in going first, and 3 Barrier, which is for Xyz heavy and fusion heavy matchups. To be honest, it can also be used against synchro heavy matchups, but most of the time I feel the synchro decks also have like lines with link monsters, and the barrier is not that great against it. Yeah, that's the deck. One thing I also wanted to mention is if I was going second, I was always siding out 3 of my engine cards, usually the one Nightmare, my second Grave Diggers, and one of the Hodoteas, to make place for more hand traps, because drawing your only Gravedigger isn't that bad if you're going second, because the likelihood of getting Nibiru is much smaller. Many opponents side out Nibiru against Traptrix completely. And even if not, they don't want to blow up their board, or in many cases you don't even make a Ravnicia, so one Gravediggers can go out easily. Then Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare I just think is not as good going second, because it's much better when your opponent establishes a board, then you can negate it, because you can only use this on a monster that was special summoned the turn. So I think it loses much of its value going second, like all the trap holes, but I think this one the most. And then one Pudica, because again there are a lot of normal summons, and most of the enemy decks can put up a negate going first. And if your normal summon gets negated, this one is like the worst to have, because it can't even attack over anything, or is the worst at it with 900 attack. So that's why I decided to side like this. I hope this is a useful insight and helpful for many. I can really recommend the Banishing Trap Hole. It was like one of my MVPs today, just banishing your opponent's normal summon, especially if it doesn't have an ignition effect, or if the ignition effect doesn't do that much. It is really great. Yeah, can really recommend it. Yeah, bye.